Welcome back to my part 2 conversation with Baer of Sooth, where today we geek out on a new AI data engine that can quickly give your brand an empathy secret weapon. This AI-powered method unlocks the formula for an emotional connection to your brand, increasing customer value 4x and loyalty by an average of 20 months. These insights are a content marketer's dream, helping you more easily pull together your content plans and understand what your audience needs in terms of what the heck should you be talking about. If you missed it, part 1 of my convo with Baer is episode 129, right before this, where Ian shares Gen Z insights. So check that out if you want to successfully reach 18 to 26-year-olds. Baer is the founder and chief soothsayer at the strategic insights platform and marketing consultancy named Sooth. And he has been solving marketing's greatest challenges for over 3 decades, having spent his career helping major brands achieving extraordinary success and challenger brands box above their weight class in leadership roles with Publicis Group, TBWA, Rap, Deutsch, and others. Welcome to Marketing with Empathy, where we help marketers and business professionals create content that drives better business results, content that attracts and engages new and existing customers. How? By planning content through an empathy lens, positioning your customer as the hero and you and your brand as the guide that they want to buy from because you get them. I'm your host, Sarah Panus, and I understand how hard it is to juggle all the demands coming at you. As a content strategist and certified story brand guide, I have more than 20 years of experience creating winning content plans for brands of all sizes, including Sleep Number, Starbucks, SheFit, and numerous mid and small size businesses, helping drive millions of engagements and sales each year. And this podcast is in the top 5% of all marketing podcasts thanks to your support. And before we hear from today's sponsors and jump into the interview, I have a new exciting quiz to help improve your content strategy that I invite you to take. You can discover which content makeover will boost your brand's success. Take this 40-second quiz to find out which home makeover show is most like your brand, and then get a content makeover plan to help you attract customers and drive better business results. You can find the quiz on my website at kindredspeak.com/favorites or see the link in this episode's description. Now, a quick word from today's sponsors, and then we'll jump right into hearing from Baer and Sooth's new AI data engine and how it could help your brand.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkis-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkisporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
Welcome back to the show, Ian. Today, we're going to dig even deeper in terms of data and AI and something that you referred to as being your brand's empathy secret weapon. So I want to talk about all the exciting work that your company's doing to help brands understand their audience with data and AI and creating that good data that they can use in ways that actually helps people. I know you said to me before that marketing should be kind. So tell us more about the work you and your team are doing at Sooth.
I spent 35 years in the agency business, and I'm kind of a rare bird in the agency space because I was an agency president for many years. I was a chief strategy officer for many years, and I was a chief creative officer for many years. So I got every perspective you could get. I kind of wore every hat you could wear. And I always prided myself on being able to achieve results for clients that were superior to what they had done in the past. And the hallmark of that was always a deeper level of understanding of the emotional needs, really building a different level of empathy with the buyers in a category than other brands were doing. And while I always thought that was a better way of doing things, I don't think I realized how much better until the last few years, because started to see all this data about how marketing performance was declining across the board. Salesforce published a report last year where they said that since 2020, global overall marketing performance is down 23%. So I'm looking around and saying, well, I don't get this, because the results that we are seeing for our clients are getting better and better year over year. But somehow it's getting worse everywhere else. I'm seeing agencies get fired after 6 months. I'm seeing very short CMO tenures. I'm reading all this data that says consumers are more disillusioned with marketing and advertising than they've ever been. And Sooth for me was sort of an opportunity to say, time out. Because I think what's missing from most brand equations right now is empathy. And very often the problem is that understanding is the first thing that gets redlined from marketing budgets. And we've all been there. When a marketing budget's about to get approved and whoever's making that final decision says, well, you know what? I'd rather take this money that was earmarked for research or this money that was earmarked for measurement or both and put it into working media or put it into shooting one more TV spot or whatever the case may be. And what happens is now you're just playing law of averages and hoping something works. And I don't think the traditional approach to market research is without responsibility for that either, because very often it's so easy to redline because it's either too expensive, takes too much time. So what I wanted to do and was able to do with what we developed as the Sooth method, which I'll mention now has a patent pending, is to be able to use the power of AI to crunch data simultaneously against thousands of different emotional, psychographic, attitudinal, behavioral factors, looking at virtually every adult in the United States so that we can build out audiences for any category or any brand and determine what their key emotional needs are and very prescriptively help the brand meet those needs. So whether we're doing it looking at the customers of a brand or maybe a competitor's customers in a category, or in work that we've just done recently around Super Bowl advertisers, we looked at all the car companies advertising in the Super Bowl and said, okay, for everyone in the US who plans to buy a new car in the next 6 months, what are their emotional needs? What is going to drive their decision more than anything? Because very often it's not the stuff the brands want to talk about or want to sell. So that's really when we talk about unlocking empathy through data. It's really a matter of being able to quantify the extent to which confidence or fun or freedom or a need for security might ultimately factor into the choice a consumer makes. There were 10 emotional factors that Harvard Business Review, in I think it was 2016, was able to isolate that there are only really 10 emotional elements that positively correlate to purchase behavior. So what we can do is derive what looks and feels like a credit score for each of those 10 elements based on these thousands of AI models we're able to apply simultaneously to the data to tease out, okay, in the moment where somebody's going to choose between the thing that looks like fun and the thing that makes them feel safe, we can predict at a 95% confidence level which of those doors they're going to walk through. And then we can help the brand meet them where they are. That's what comes out of working with enormous data sets. Again, another thing where traditional research, you're never going to conduct traditional research on 1.5 million people. But it's very common for us to look at a data set that vast, and that's what allows us to generate a level of statistical significance you generally don't see from traditional research.
And where does this rich data come from?
So we license data from 2 different third-party sources that, between the two, give us coverage of, as I said, 220 million US adults. So it's virtually every unincarcerated adult in the United States, everyone over the age of 18 who is in a consumer position. We're able to look at them through the lens of both their consumer and business decision-making behavior, by the way, because we can overlay what they do for a living and then different factors to determine when they are in professional mode versus parental mode or homeowner mode or whatever the case may be. And then, as I said, we simultaneously ping them against thousands of different emotional and attitudinal elements, as well as tens of thousands of purchase behaviors, online digital footprint, able to track them all the way down to the TV programs they watch and the apps that they spend time in, and specifically what they do within those apps. So we get a very rich matrix that allows us to see all the way from that initial emotional need to the triggers that align with that need, and I'll speak about that again in a moment, all the way through to specific content and experiences that will satisfy that emotional trigger. And when I say triggers are important, well, if I say, okay, confidence is the most important thing to you and to me, well, that sounds like you know something, but the reality is what confidence means to you might be very different from the way I feel confident. You may gain confidence from feeling like you're in control of. I may gain confidence from feeling like I've accumulated so much knowledge that I'm prepared for anything that might come. And very naturally, even if our need for confidence is relatively the same, you and I are going to seek out different content, different experiences to satisfy that need and make me feel like, okay, now I'm confident to go choose this car. Well, we can get down to that level of precision to see through that lens that starts with that emotional need and goes all the way through to, as I said, the very specific content experience that that individual is going to seek out and spend time with to satisfy that need.
And at Sooth, then, are there specific industries or niches that you help right now, or is it really open to?
We have done things as varied as we worked with a pharmaceutical company, I'll cite as one example, to help them identify the emotional needs of a patient population that was undiagnosed. So pretty hard to find groups of people to interview who have a condition that they don't know they have. But by overlaying symptoms and specialists visited and over-the-counter and prescription medication that they've taken, and then their stated feelings of well-being, and as I mentioned, symptomatic reporting and things like that, we were able to identify people who were suffering from this undiagnosed ailment. So that's one end, but all the way to the other side, we've done things like for an athletic brand, we've identified a sort of a stigma that was keeping non-buyers away from their brand. We have worked with a technology company to define a new business model to allow them to compete with giants in their industry. So it can be applied in so many different ways. We're even working with entertainment companies to help them create programming and content instead of the traditional model of, hey, we have an idea for this program on a streaming platform, and now we have to go find an audience for it. Well, what if you started with, we want to reach this audience and understand what they need, and then build the content around that? And that reverse engineered model of content creation is actually something I'm going to be speaking about at a TV industry conference. And it's exciting to see the way we're able to apply this good data. Thanks for using that term. We should be moving from the era of big data to data that actually helps people to create programming people actually want.
Every time I talk to you, I get so excited because it is literally a content person's dream to have this level of insight, to make good content, like you mentioned. And it seems like a no brainer when you think about it, right? Brands that create this emotional connection with their customers, they win.
They don't just win hearts and minds, as people like to say. It's been financially proven out. The latest data says that people who feel emotionally connected to a brand spend 4 times more. They have an annual customer value 2.5 times that of somebody who doesn't feel the emotional connection, and they stay customers an average of 20 months longer. So when you think about almost any business model that relies on monthly recurring revenue, whether it's a subscription product, whether it's a pharmaceutical where, one patient might be worth $1,000 a month or more, that 20 months allows you to do so much more to meet somebody's needs. And you're not just throwing darts, you're actually delivering exactly what somebody wants from you.
Which creates so many efficiencies internally as well. In addition to all the financial things, there's internal efficiencies of not wasting your time and time on the wrong stuff and your money talking about the wrong things.
And you start to reverse that trend of declining performance. I saw Gartner publish something, I want to say last summer, where more than 70% of CMOs said they don't have enough budget to hit their committed marketing goals. And I read that and I was just shaking my head saying, okay, the problem's not that you don't have enough budget. The problem is you've come to expect so little performance from the money you do spend. And that's what we have to fix. Everyone deserves better. Brands deserve better. Creators in the marketing space deserve better, because we don't like to see our work fail in the marketplace. Gosh, consumers deserve better.
Yeah, and I would say everyone rewind, hit the back button, keep listening to all of those stats that Ian just shared, because those are great things to bring up when and if you get pushback, or if there's budget cut discussions of cutting from this area to put towards, quote, working media. I mean, this is an area where it does not make sense to cut, and a lot of brands are still resistant to lean into the emotional side of marketing.
Or they say, we'll get to that next quarter or next year.
Yeah.
It's a now thing.
Yes.
Understanding what your customers need from you emotionally, that's a now.
Ooh, I just got goosebumps. I love that. That's a now. So let's make it easier to become a now. Talk to me about the speed, because I worked in corporate for billion-dollar brands, and the speed thing is what is hard, because in that moment when you're crunched and you got to make decisions about what gets cut from the budget, they need to drive sales and they need to drive them quickly. So then they cut the longer term things that they see as taking too long to play out, and they turn to things that they think are more working media, which they feel is more instant. But since you're using AI, it seems like you could probably get at this a lot faster, right? Like, how long does a process like this take when you work with a client?
That's when I realized we really had something with the work we're doing at Sooth, because we can generate more and deeper insights for a brand in 3 or 4 weeks than I could ever deliver in 6 months before a method like this was available. Often I can start feeding insights to a client within 7 to 10 days after beginning the process. When we generate just the initial, what we call the emotional blueprint, and we're ready to tell somebody right out of the gate before we go deep into all of that stuff on specifically where they go and what types of experiences. And we can tell them right up front, hey, these people are primarily motivated by a need for security and specifically financial security. So anything you're saying to them that doesn't feed that need, that's wasted effort. And being able to get to that so quickly, and as one client recently said to me, which I just love, she said, we're dealing in facts now. We're not dealing in opinion or because I said so or because here's what you think I should do. It's like, no, look, this is what 76% of the people we're trying to reach want from us. And it does change things when you can lean on that data so quickly. So it's really both time and cost efficiency of the offering that makes the work we do so powerful and frankly so rewarding for me, because anyone who ever worked with me on the agency side knows it would just tear my heart out to see a brand go to market without really understanding their customers and maybe what the barriers to success might be. And my goal with Sooth is that no one ever has to do that anymore. We have so much data, we should do better and we should know better.
Well, that's incredibly fast. So, the nice thing with a 3 to 4 week turnaround of getting this information is a brand can get these insights and implement them in the same quarter.
Because so much new data is being created every month and every year.
Okay.
And there's so much evolution of technology on a constant basis that the drivers in any given category might not be the same in the third quarter of this year than they were in the first quarter of this year. So very often with more traditional methodologies, by the time you even get those insights, if you invest the time and the money, they're not as valid anymore. One of the things we're able to do is we actually can maintain audience panels for brands and go back and by refreshing that data on a weekly basis, which is what our system is automatically built to do. So every week we're pulling in new social conversations and new survey results and new behaviors. We're able to see when a blip, whether it's in world events, in the economy, whatever the case may be, starts to impact the way people decide in a category. So it's not just being able to use the stuff more quickly, but it's knowing that they are more recent insights, because you're never relying on anything that's well aged.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Especially now, within the last 4 years since COVID and how fast things change and evolve, and this is an election year when this episode's coming out. So, what's going to happen with that in terms of pre and post reactions?
An election year that I think everyone would agree is like no other. There's a
Yep.
lot to keep our eyes on.
Yep, definitely. Okay, well, we are coming up here where we're going to have to wrap things up in this part 2 discussion. And everyone listening, I hope this opens your eyes and gets you excited. I honestly get really giddy with this kind of stuff because if you're not leaning into data to inform your empathy, I refer to it as empathy filters in your content. You need those. It's like my framework, my FED method framework, FED. It's focus, storytelling pillars, it's empathy plus data. All those things together take the guesswork out of what the heck should you be talking about for the year in your content plans. I highly recommend checking out Ian's company, Sooth. And I'll put the links in the show notes as well. But Ian, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to add that I didn't ask you about but should?
Here's the only other thing I'll add, because I think it's an important lens for anyone in the marketing space. Driven up to a great extent by the changes that have happened in the last 4 years or so, where we've all gone from these highly compartmentalized lives to these completely simultaneous existences, where many people are sitting at the same computer for home activities, work activities, in the same room, on the same camera, looking at the same cell phone. And no longer can we leave work at work and home at home. The whole notion of B2B and B2C, I think, has sort of gone away. And I think it is really important for people to recognize that what works in business marketing is not very different anymore from what works in consumer marketing. We're really thinking about it more in the context of what we call B2I, brands to individuals, because it's really the same emotions that drive my decisions when I'm choosing things for my business. The same emotions come into play when I'm buying a car, when I'm considering an investment, when the exact factors and the factual basis, the rationale that I'll build in after emotions have driven 90% of what I want to do. Yeah, sure, those will vary a little bit, but it is the same emotional being making decisions as a consumer, as a business person, as a hobbyist, as an investor. And I think it's important, especially for anyone deeply engaged in the content space, to recognize that the need to reach somebody empathetically, the need to have a carefully crafted narrative, even if you're selling a B2B tech product, it's every bit as important as if you're selling, a finely crafted coffee or a German luxury auto. Narrative has never been more important. And because of that, empathy has never been more important.
Amen. That's a great place to end this. Okay, so tell us again how people can connect with you online, Ian.
Well, Sarah, I know you're providing the links, so you'll find us at soothbetold.com. If you drop an email to hello@soothbetold.com, I'll make sure that our team gets it right to me. And I would love to connect with anyone who loves talking shop and all the neat tricks we're able to do now with data and AI unlocking customer empathy. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with anyone there.
That's a wrap. I predict big growth for Sooth. I'm really excited to see the work that they continue to do for brands. Until next week, God bless.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe.